In the early 17th century, long before the United States existed, small wooden ships crossed a vast and uncertain Atlantic. On board were families, laborers, merchants, and dreamers. They were not arriving in an empty world. They were stepping into a continent already shaped by generations of native civilizations. Yet the story many of us learned reduces these beginnings to simple images. Brave settlers, religious freedom, the birth of democracy. The reality was quieter, harder, more complicated. To understand America, we have to return to its earliest shores and look more closely. When English settlers arrived in the early 1600s, they encountered thriving native societies. In the region that would become Virginia lived the Powhatan Confederacy, a network of tribes connected through diplomacy and shared leadership. Farther north, along the coast of present-day Massachusetts, lived the Wampanoag people. These communities farmed the land, cultivated corn and beans, fished coastal waters, and maintained trade routes that stretched across regions. The continent was not wild in the way Europeans imagined. It was inhabited, organized, and deeply understood by those who called it home. The arrival of English ships did not begin history here. It disrupted it. In 1607, English settlers established Jamestown in Virginia. It was the first permanent English colony in North America. Unlike later colonies founded for religious reasons, Jamestown was a business venture, financed by investors in the Virginia Company of London. Its purpose was profit, but the settlers were unprepared. They chose swampy land vulnerable to disease. They arrived during drought. Many lacked practical farming skills. Within months, illness spread. Food ran scarce. Relations with the Powhatan Confederacy fluctuated between cautious trade and open conflict. Then came the winter of 1609, known as the Starving Time. It reduced hundreds of colonists to desperation. Historical records suggest some survived by eating whatever they could find, even leather from their boots. By the spring, only a fraction remained alive. Jamestown endured, not because it was well designed, but because it adapted. When tobacco became a profitable export, the colony stabilized. Yet that success carried consequences. Tobacco demanded land, and it demanded labor. In 1619, a ship carrying captured Africans arrived in Virginia. Their arrival marked the beginning of a labor system that would expand and harden over time. In the early decades, labor in the colonies included indentured servants, Europeans who worked temporarily in exchange for passage. But as plantation agriculture grew, so did demand for permanent labor. Gradually, laws were passed that tied slavery to race. Over the decades, temporary servitude became lifelong bondage. A society that would one day declare liberty as its highest ideal was already developing a system that denied it to many. This contradiction did not appear later in American history. It was present at the beginning. In 1620, another ship arrived along the northern coast, the Mayflower. These passengers, later known as the Pilgrims, sought religious freedom. They intended to build a community shaped by their beliefs. Their first winter was devastating. Cold weather, illness, and limited supplies claimed nearly half their number. Their survival depended in large part on assistance from the Wampanoag, including a man known as Squanto, who had learned English and served as a translator. The gathering, remembered as the first Thanksgiving, was likely a harvest celebration and a moment of cooperation. But the peace was fragile. As colonial settlements expanded, competition for land intensified. Within decades, tensions erupted into violent conflict, including King Philip's War in 1675, one of the deadliest wars per capita in early American history. The story was not a simple partnership. It was a shifting relationship shaped by survival, misunderstanding, and power. In 1630, the Massachusetts Bay Colony was founded by Puritans who envisioned a city upon a hill, a model Christian society. They sought religious purity, but their version of freedom had boundaries. Political participation was often tied to church membership. Dissenters were expelled. Religious disagreement could mean exile. These colonies were experiments, not yet democracies in the modern sense. They were structured communities attempting to create order in uncertain conditions. Liberty existed, but within limits. For most colonists, daily life was defined by labor. Homes were modest. Winters were harsh. Medical knowledge was limited. Children worked from a young age. Families relied on farming, craftsmanship, and community support. Life expectancy was short by modern standards. Yet, compared to rigid class systems in Europe, the colonies offered something powerful: the possibility of land ownership and upward movement. The chance, however uncertain, to shape one's future. That possibility drew more ships across the Atlantic. America's first colonies were not built on simple ideals alone. They were shaped by ambition and hardship, faith and fear, cooperation and conflict. They introduced systems that would encourage self-government. They also established inequalities that would echo for centuries. The truth about the first colonies is not meant to diminish their significance. It is meant to understand them honestly. Because in those early settlements, fragile and uncertain, the foundations of the nation were laid. And the questions they faced, about freedom, power, identity, and belonging, are questions that continue to shape American life today.